Good evening again. This is the meeting of the Committee of the Whole of the Town of Waukesha. It is Thursday, June 27th, 2019, and we're beginning at 6:31 p.m. Just a reminder, the Committee of the Whole meeting is being live streamed here, so it's available on YouTube. We will not be taking any minutes. We will not be taking any formal action, but it'll be an opportunity for the members of the board and staff to engage in an informal discussion. Public participation will not be allowed during this portion of the meeting. This will last a half hour maximum, and we'll begin the town board meeting itself at 7 o'clock. So we're called to order. All members of the town board are present. And the subject for discussion tonight, single topic, is maintenance of town rights-of-way. And I asked Kathy, maybe we can put it up just to kick this off, run through a couple of images on the screen there. I know that's a bit difficult to see from the side here, but just to kind of a little bit set the tenor of it, I put an image back up there that I think goes back almost 2 years to meeting on the 27th of July of 2017, where we just had an image of a culvert under a town road, not a driveway culvert. And there were a couple of questions posed on there, whether that needed to be maintained and basically responsibility for that town versus property owners and so forth. So that's kind of one topical area. If we can kind of move ahead, in the fall of 2017, and I think Administrator Clerk Treasurer Nicholas might have been instrumental of it. That's probably difficult to read from there, but cut to the chase. One of the Public Works employees did a town-wide inventory of all of the culverts under town roads, not driveway culverts. I think identified, my recollection is 219. It's like a 5-page list, and found that 74 of them, just a little over a third of them, were either 25, 50%, 75, or 100% blocked. That document exists for anybody that wants to take a look at it. And then moving on, I put a couple other pictures up there. Someone's seen the issue we're talking about with drainage. This is Morningside Drive and Hinsdale Road. These are images taken in February of 2018 when we had heavy rainfall with frozen ground, and you can see that there was not, culverts were blocked up in certain areas. This is in that same general area as Oriole Drive and Morningside. Just stay with that one for a minute. You can see issue there when culverts are blocked. We basically got water backup that goes over roads and has a chance to refreeze and do nasty stuff with base under roads and the like. You can go on from there. There's another image of the same place. That particular one later that year was cleaned out, so it did drain. So that was one of the 74 on the list that was blocked. Just moving ahead and just kind of lay out what's here. You should have a copy of a letter that Attorney Macy wrote that we got this afternoon that addresses maintenance of town culverts under town roads. And I mean, you can amplify that in a minute. The summary, I think, on that is your conclusion, legal conclusion, is that's a town's responsibility to maintain. Is that the essence of it, cut to the chase, Attorney Macy?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And then just quickly, so we can get on to the discussion, here in a bit you do have, Kathy put together a number of pieces of paperwork there of ordinance. We may get into that. This is an item for possible action in the agenda later. And let's just go a bit of a step further with a couple of things up there. There's just a handful of images of some town roads and town intersections. I'm not going to narrate through those, but I mean, they're identified with file names and stuff, and it just shows vegetation and so forth in some areas at town road intersections. Again, we talked a bit about the issue of that. So say one last thing and then open it up for discussion. I would suggest that during the committee of the whole here for the next 25 minutes that we not get lost in what we think our current ordinances say or require interpretations of that, just to kind of make this a bit simpler, look at it from the perspective going forward, a two-pronged approach. What legally can the town, I'll use the word assign, and there might be a better one, Attorney Macy, but legally, what can we require abutting or property owners that abut or adjoin the public right of way? What legally can we require them to do in terms of maintenance? And this entails everything from drainage to vegetation, trees, brush and so forth. What legally can we require people to do? And I'd submit there's a second question that's a bit different, and that would be within the confines and constraints of what legally we can require people to do. What do we want them to do versus what we would undertake as responsibility for the town? So I'll pause there for a minute, take the discussion. Any place you want. Again, we're not taking action on any of this in the committee of the whole meeting, but anybody wants to speak to it, take it away.
I'd like to start off, has this changed? That, I guess, how long have the culverts on the roads been the town responsibilities?
I'm not sure I know the answer to that question from my perspective, and I posed that question almost 2 years ago, and that was never answered or resolved. It has been my point of view that that's always been the town's responsibility, but previous town board didn't really come to that definitive conclusion. I mean, anybody can speak differently to that. I don't think anything has changed on that part of it, but there just wasn't a clear, the question was not clearly answered during the past 2 years.
I recall that differently. I recall that the previous town board very specifically acknowledged that culverts that go under town roads are the responsibility of the town.
Okay, there have been residents I have spoken to that have been charged for ditching done near or right next to the town road culvert, just because their yard abuts the road.
That's different than the town. That's different than the culvert that goes under the town road. I mean, I know that the chairman didn't want to talk about our current ordinance. I don't know how we can talk about this topic without talking about our current ordinance. But talking about the culvert that goes under a town road, perhaps Supervisor Radke can recollect from his point of view, but my recollection is that the previous town board acknowledged that culverts that go under town roads are the responsibility of the town. That's my recollection, and that's how I support it now.
So as soon as you get either side of the culvert 1 foot, then it's the homeowner's responsibility?
Well, that's a discussion about our current ordinance, and the chairman doesn't want to discuss that, so.
Well, here, let's back up for a minute. I mean, if you want to talk about the ordinance, go ahead. We go backwards if we want to look at people's recollections, and I don't think we should get lost in that tonight. We're looking to go forward here. It's not Waukesha, not backwards or sideways, but
Well, if you want to go forward,
well, let me
that's
finish.
fine.
Let me finish.
From my point of
Can I
view-
just finish?
From my point
Can
of
I
view,
just finish,
culverts
please?
under the town roads are the town's
Right.
responsibility.
Let me just go, and
Position going
if
forward.
everybody agrees with that, that's fine, but in terms of recollections, and go back and look at the YouTube of July 27th, 2017, I'm the one that put that first image up and raised the question, and basically responses to that were, we don't even know whether culverts under town roads are needed, and if we don't have any problems, why do anything about it? That was discussion, but let's move forward. Is there anybody that disagrees? at this point in time that maintenance, and that includes cleaning them out so they're open, is a town responsibility. I mean, we could cut to the chase. Does anybody disagree with that?
No?
All right, then we're done with that.
I just want to preface that. I don't disagree that it's our responsibility, but just because something is partially blocked doesn't mean that it needs to be cleaned. Something that is partially blocked doesn't necessarily, is not necessarily causing a problem. So if it is causing a problem and it is under a town road, I agree that it's the town responsibility to resolve it, but just because something is partially blocked doesn't necessarily mean that it's causing a problem. I mean, if we're gonna start to require that every culvert has to be spick and clean, that's probably gonna be a problem both for the town and for many, many residences.
Well, I guess we'll take a step at a time. The town, I believe, and Jerry could even speak to this for driveway culverts, we require a minimum 15-inch diameter culvert, correct? I don't. That's driveway culverts. I'm assuming that ones under town roads wouldn't be any less than that. And if we require that by ordinance, and we've got things that are 50% or 75% filled up with sand, from my point of view, we need to go get them and clean them out so they're full size. I mean, we don't need to get lost in that tonight. At least we're making one forward step if we agree that it's the town's responsibility. That's a forward step. Who else wants to talk?
I'm just going to say that I agree with the fact that after they're 50% plugged, I mean, obviously that not every rainfall is going to create a problem, but are we going to wait till we get the 4 or 5 inch rainfall and now it becomes a problem because now they're only running at half capacity? I guess that's kind of an issue. It's called preventive maintenance in some areas.
We don't by chance have a picture of the culvert on Dale and Oakview Drive by chance, do we? That'd be the one that I'm specifically talking about.
I mean, maybe even about a bit of even additional information. We have an incredible resource. Terry Sales put a lot of time and effort into developing that inventory of existing town culverts back in the fall of 2017. I mean, just 2 weeks ago, we found 2 more culverts that aren't even on the list that are out at Getz Drive because they're so buried in vegetation and gush and filled up with things. I think the town's got a responsibility to fill in that list when we find additional culverts, update them. Certainly a priority can be given to it, and we don't have to resolve that tonight, but I think the town ought to get on with cleaning out block culverts under town roads. Certainly somebody could prioritize which ones to do first, but I look at it as a preventative maintenance thing. Maybe it's a poor analogy, but I look at it almost like an oil change or something. I think people regularly change their oil and you don't wait till your vehicle breaks down before you do it. That's my point of view. We're not going to resolve all of this tonight, but I think Attorney Mason, I know Kathy sent you a thing. I mean, I think you, and you can speak to it, but you understand we're looking to you, and thank you for putting forth the letter you did for the culverts under town roads. I think that can get us off the dime on that part of it, but I think you understand that we're looking for a similar kind of opinion when it comes to flow lines and existing ditches, removing trees from the right-of-way and that type of thing. I mean, I think the town board is interested in having him weigh in on that, those types of things, are we not? Anybody disagree with that?
To me, the current ordinance is pretty clear. I feel I understand it, so if others don't, then I guess we can hear from him, but.
Well, I guess my question is a little bit different. Not what different people think the current ordinance says, but what I think we need from Attorney Macy is to have him tell us what can we require private property owners. I mean, most of our town roads typically are 66 feet wide. Can we require people and direct them to remove trees in the right-of-way? Can we require them to remove, in some instances, a foot or more of sand that's filled into the drainage ways and stuff? Can we require them to do that and do that at their expense? I guess I'd like to have his opinion on that, notwithstanding what we think our ordinance now says.
I guess we just got kind of that opinion from Attorney Macy here with saying that the state statutes require that the towns are responsible for the right-of-way. And that includes the ditches and everything in the right-of-way, trees, whatever. I mean, people, I don't believe, can be allowed to put planters and trees on their front lawn that encroaches on the right-of-way. We have it specifically in there about not allowing sprinkler systems to be installed on the right-of-way, and I guess that kind of does impede snow plowing and things like that when there's trees planted right on the edge of the road. So I think it's pretty clear here that we are responsible for the right-of-way and maintaining that.
So my understanding from the introduction by the chairman and the letter from Attorney Macy of June 26th was that it was research and a discussion of culverts under town roads. He says, I received your request that I research and offer an opinion on the legal responsibility concerning maintenance and culverts under town roads. Attorney, was this also intended to address road right-of-way and culverts under driveways?
No, I have a follow-up request from the chairman and through the administrator to listen tonight and do a thorough legal opinion on the right-of-ways. And as the chairman has accurately said, the legal responsibility, what the legal responsibilities are for the right-of-way and whether or not you can assign those to the property owner. Now, you all know you can. If you've ever lived somewhere where the sidewalk, they make you have everything to do with the sidewalk, so we know the answers to some of it. But he wanted me to listen tonight, hear what your specific concerns were, so that I could meld them into the opinion. And I'm not sure I'll get to everything, but I'm listening so that I can try to hit the hot points.
I guess I would also ask, as long as you're gonna jump into it, if you feel that our current ordinance is legal according to state statute.
I'll write that down.
Thank you.
My thought on this, we're not going to get this resolved tonight. It's more important that we get it done and get it done right than to get it done fast, from my point of view. And yes, I basically suggested or asked Attorney Macy that he address those things so we know what we can and cannot do. And that may very well be a different question between what we want to do. Those may be two completely different questions, but it's a waste of our time, from my point of view, to talk about what we want to assign to property owners or get into that kind of discussion if we may be stepping beyond the bounds of what we can. And that's why I think, before we go much further, and I want to thank him for providing, until late this afternoon, I didn't know we were going to have the opinion on the culverts under town roads. So I thank you for that. We've got one piece of the puzzle in there, but I think we need to give him adequate time to address the other pieces and parts.
I think one of the issues that you have to consider is cleaning out the culvert is one thing, but whoever's downstream of it, there's more work that has to be done, or it's all gonna pool in their yard. As Supervisor German mentioned, the one in particular, now it's a lake. Culvert's clean, yard's a mess.
If that resident goes and digs out a foot of sand, can they send us a bill because it is the sand off of our roads?
What about the next guy downstream? Does he send a bill too?
Exactly.
And the next guy? So should we then ditch everything?
I mean,
So
if
not only do we clean out the culverts, but we do the entire ditching of the entire town?
I mean, from my point of view, if that's a serious question, the answer is no, because our current ordinance very clearly says that the responsibility of ditch maintenance is that the Ditch maintenance is the responsibility of the homeowner.
Right, but now we're also talking road maintenance. What if we don't keep up with our road maintenance?
It's not road maintenance, it's ditch maintenance.
Well, runoff from our roads,
Well, if it lands in the ditch,
shoulders.
then it becomes their responsibility.
shoulders,
That's part of ditch
sand.
maintenance, yeah.
I guess the question I would have, are you saying if we have a ditch line that's got a foot or more of sand in it, that basically over the years was washed off the roads, a lot of it was placed when the town was putting down a salt sand mix, so it fills in the ditch lines, so basically the ditch invert or the flow line has been altered, so it blocks water with that sand infill, that we should make that a town property owner's responsibility to move the sand or the boiler slag or whatever that the town put on the road? Is that your point of view?
My point of view is that that's what the current ordinance says. And to be, just for full transparency, I support the current ordinance. So yes, that is my point of view. It
Okay.
specifically says, under maintenance of public ditches, responsibility to maintain every owner of land in the town whose land abuts a public right-of-way on which is located a ditch, culvert, or swale shall be required to maintain or have maintained the ditch, culvert, or swale so as to permit and allow the unobstructed and free passage of water within the public ditch, culvert, or swale. And it goes on to say more. But
Okay, let me ask then a question. How does a property owner then, if they're going to be given that responsibility, how do they know how to profile, and I'll call it profile, that ditch to move water? How do they know how much of the town's sand to dig out of it?
That's not my responsibility, Chairman. I'm reading the ordinance, and I'm telling you I support the ordinance. How they go about doing it is up to their discretion, I guess.
Are
Mr.
we,
Chairman, you
Sure.
reminded us today that you were gonna talk about ideas. You're delving into, I think, the next area. I don't wanna stop you, but the policy decisions are, what can you do, and then what are you going to do? And you're sort of getting, I need my guidance, and
Yeah.
we've only got 6 or 7
yeah,
minutes left.
that's fair enough. I don't think I took us there in the discussion.
No,
Do you know what we're expecting of you? And does anybody disagree with the assignment we've given to Attorney Macy? Anybody
I'm just
disagree
looking
with
for
that?
more specifics, like people have thrown out already. The supervisor threw out that he was reading my opinion to say that it's the town's responsibility, but that doesn't mean that responsibility can't be assigned for the ditches and your culvert under your driveway. And you have to decide how far you want to go, and Mr. Dorr has indicated that the ordinance goes all the way. Is that a fair statement?
I don't understand the
All
statement.
of the responsibility, the drainage, the trees,
Yeah,
everything,
yes,
that
yes.
ordinance is all inclusive. The other supervisors was on the other side saying, my opinion said it was all the towns. And there's a nuance here that I wanna make sure you all understand, and I'll keep this very short. The mere fact that whether it's the homeowner or the town, there's only certain things you're required to do. If it goes back to the town is not required to cut your lawn. They never have to cut it. The only thing they have to, there's very limited things they have to do, and I have to spell out those things. Like if the tree is blocking the stop sign, you have to make sure the stop sign can be seen, okay? But there are only very limited things that a municipality has to do in their right of way. And I think I'm gonna, unless there's an objection, I'm gonna include that. Because I think you need to know that. I mean, there's no, most people, somebody mentioned Vernon, one of my clients, and I was looking, trying to use my time wisely. I could find no ordinance in Vernon that said that the residents had to maintain the ditches. But I can tell you, the town does not cut everybody's ditch. People cut their ditches because they want them to look like their lawn. So they voluntarily cut their ditches in the subdivisions. But that doesn't mean they do it because there's a law. That's a non-fight.
My suggestion in terms of what you're doing, and I think you've got a handle on at least what my expectations are, and I guess I'd even ask you to look at it one other way. Not only what can the town require the abutting property owner to do, I mean, I'll flip it around the other way. If there's a 120-year-old oak tree that's 1 foot onto the right-of-way, and somebody might argue it's not impacting any kind of safety or anything, can that property go in there, or property owner go in there and take down a 120-year-old oak tree and gather up the firewood? Can they do any of that that they want in there? I mean, let's look at it from that perspective too, please. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm just gonna go there. I guess my concern is we're gonna maintain the culvert and we're not gonna maintain anything downstream, as Supervisor Radke said. And we're gonna let each individual landowner decide if they're gonna clean out their ditch or not. Are we gonna have continuity as far as water flow and drainage in the whole area or not? I guess when we let one person's gonna dig it 2 feet deep, the next guy's only gonna take a foot out of his, we're gonna have a problem with water running over the road or wherever that dam is gonna be created. So I guess that's, my point is to have some continuity, have the town responsible for this and their engineer involved in some of the drainage issues and things like that. I think it's only the right thing to do, the prudent thing to do. I guess I'm saying we're gonna have a helter-skelter mess out there with everybody maintaining the ditch on their own property and some cutting trees and some not. Tree cutting is becoming an issue. There's roads in the town that have trees hanging over the sides. I've seen school buses and delivery vans. They're doing the trimming because their vans are hitting the limbs that are hanging over the road, and it's not a good, healthy, safe situation.
Well, then we should address it.
I think we are,
Okay,
We should address it as our current ordinance states, which we are not.
and that's not getting done that way.
Well, then we should direct somebody to do so. Who should we assign the responsibility to do so? We got building inspectors, we got a clerk treasurer administrator, we got a DPW director. Take your pick. I mean, we're a town board. We should-
According to the ordinance, we're supposed to write citations first and send them out to each landowner and have them cut their brush.
Okay.
But I think that's not economically feasible. You're gonna overload the town clerk's office here with citations and warnings, and I think in the long run, it'd be cheaper just to go down the road and cut the weeds, cut the brush, and be done with it, wherever there's
So-
brush is entailing on the roads.
It would be cheaper to send the DPW out to do the physical cutting than have the clerk treasurer's office send out notices.
I think so, yes.
Okay.
Okay, unless there's anything more, we're going to wrap up here pretty quick. We promised that this would be limited to a half hour. Anybody got anything more? Thank you. I think that was a good discussion, place to start. And again, Attorney Macy, from my perspective, it's more important that you take sufficient amount of time to address them what you want to, rather than we try to put a rush on the thing. I mean, I'm sure you got
This is very helpful.
many other things to do. I think it's more important that we get this right than to see how quickly we can do it. Okay, if there's nothing further, then the committee of the whole will come to a close, and we will go right into the town board meeting. Welcome to the town board meeting of the town of Waukesha, June 27th, 2019. And we are beginning promptly at 7 p.m. We've been called to order. Would you all please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call, please, Kathy.
Supervisor Durr?
Here.
Chairman Fisher?
Here.
Supervisor German?
Here.
Supervisor Radke?
Here.
Supervisor Stigler?
Here.
Thank you, all present. Then we need to have confirmation that we have compliance with posting of this meeting as an open meeting. Can you confirm that, please?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Item 5, citizens' comments. Anyone who would like to address the board, please come forward. Just a Reminder to everybody, get right up close to that microphone. We want to hear what you have to say. Anybody who'd like to come forth?
So I'm going to touch on
Name and address, please.
Quinn Piala, S39 W27833, Genesee Road. I'm here to talk on the ditching. I don't care which way either place goes. I'll talk on it real quickly. The ability to mow safely, drive down town line, stick a homeowner in there without proper flashing barricades. Look how dangerous that will be, and now you're looking at a lawsuit. Wet ditches. Most homeowners don't have the equipment to do wet ditches. Behind our property, we did ditch our property, but we can't control the runoff right now. We're not allowed to put riprap in it. The seed can't take through the middle of it, and we're not allowed to do riprap. How are we supposed to maintain that? It's very difficult in a lot of areas in the town with common equipment that a typical homeowner has. Even professional mowers have a difficult time taking care of it. Ditching's it's a very dangerous thing. I deal with this professionally. I deal with people that have filled their ditches in completely, backed up the water and caused all kinds of problems. Other people don't know, like it was brought up before, they don't have the laser levels, they don't have the equipment to do the proper ditching and line it up all the way down the stream. If you have high spots, water drops the dirt that it's carrying as it slows down, which means it continues to fill in backwards. So if we only have culverts that are half full, it's going to slow the water at that point and continue to drop sediment behind it, and it's going to continue to fill back up. That's why you want a clear stream of water running. Who's qualified to do the ditching if the homeowners hire somebody or do it themselves? Is there any sort of control? Is the building inspector allowed to come out and check and say, this is appropriate or this is not appropriate if we require homeowners to do the ditching? It's a very dangerous slope that we're putting ourselves on, and I think the ordinance needs to just be changed. I know it's a difficult road to do it, but currently, every time there's been a debate about this, it's been because we're following our ordinance. We're following our ordinance. The ordinance just has to change because I know several people that have stood up against it don't like the ordinance, but that's our rules, and we need to follow our rules. And if we don't follow this rule and we look a blind eye to it, what other rule do we look a blind eye to? We're opening a bigger can of worms or Pandora's box. How do we pay for it? Maybe we have to do an assessment. No different than I physically live in the town of Summit. We have an assessment that we have to pay for our sewer, or we have an assessment that we pay quarterly for our garbage. We don't have that in the town of Waukesha. Maybe we do have to have a ditch assessment that's added to the tax bill if money is an issue in this regards. But I think requiring homeowners that aren't skilled in this, we're creating a big problem for everybody else. How you expect a homeowner, even to hire a professional, to clear trees that are 80-foot tall? Even professionals, that's why the city and the state and the towns have specific professionals they work with in regards to this. We ditched several hundred feet. It took us 300 labor hours. Okay? We ditched over 3 feet deep in some areas and hauled out over 300 yards of infill. Trees, brush, we did it on our own dime. Now it's eroding back through, and if you look behind our property, it's gullies and everything like that, and we can't get riprap. I need to bring it to a town meeting. If you're gonna require every resident to come to a town meeting every time they need riprap, every time they need an erosion control, that's absurd. This should be a building inspector issue, and it shouldn't require a cost to have the building inspector come out there. Because it is correct, no other towns around here require their residents to do that. And once we allow somebody to do it, I promise you, you guys are gonna have issue after issue because people will not do it right. I don't care which way you go on it, but these are things that you need to consider because while I have the ability to do it, 95% of the people in the town do not have the ability to do it reasonably or affordably.
Thank you very much. Who else would like to address the board? Please come forward, name and address, and close and personal with the microphone.
Sandy Hom West 230, South 3827, Milky Way Road. On the agenda is citizens' comments, and I'm going to go through this as quick as I can. I've highlighted everything that I think is important. A couple of the pages, the agendas are out of order, but they're generally in order. The first page shows the way things were operating prior to Chairman Merrick's chairmanship in 2013. My printer told me on page 2 that I was going to be outside the margin. I didn't believe it, but it says beginning of Merrick's term. And you can see that from page 1 to page 2, citizens' comments went from 2 words to 10 lines. And coincidentally, on line 2, it says not on the topic of current or previous public hearings, so that was unusual for me. The next one down is May 9th. So we have John's, well, the first one was the big one. Then the next one down, we're using the lowercase 3. It changes to uppercase later on, but we're still not speaking only on agenda items. That item's not on the agenda yet. On page 3 in 2014, this is still Chairman Merrick's reign. No institution of speaking only on agenda items. We do have the maximum of 3 minutes. 2015, same thing. 2017, this is a little out of order, but you can see there that now we're using caps, which is generally perceived as someone is yelling at you. You can also see that that's now items on the agenda only. It's the same way in October of 2018. This next one is out of order. It's 2016. It was right after the election in April. And that was the first time that we were limited to speaking on agenda items. The next one down, and the rest of them are all with Chairman Fisher as the chair, and everything remains the same except for at the first May 9th meeting, he removed the party afterwards. So I want to thank our attorney for his efforts. Everyone here probably knows I completely disagree with adding more rules. All it does is put up more barriers for your electorate to come and talk to you, signing in, limiting what you talk on. Those are all things that limit our participation. If that's what you want, I suspect that's what you'll get. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Who else would like to address the board? Please come forward. Name, address, and that reminder to get up to the microphone, please. Thank you.
How's this?
Good.
Lori Longtime, W271 S3581 Oak Knoll Drive, Town of Waukesha. I also wish to address the issue of citizen comments, or as they're proposed to be changed to public comments. I find after all that we have talked about, and you had a whole meeting on this a couple weeks ago, and here we have a draft proposal that is more limiting and even nastier in tone than the very nasty citizen comment paragraph that was instituted by Chairman Merrick. Honestly, I was going to take the paragraph and rewrite it a little bit so that it just sounded a little bit softer, and then I realized, you know, there's no way to soften this up. There's, you know, we're being limited as to time, which is understandable under some circumstances, but I have been to a lot of town meetings when it was just citizens' comments, and it didn't seem to me like there was a lot of people going over. over any sort of time limit. Well, we didn't have one really, but, just standing up there and going on and on. And that is always at the discretion of the chair to, to ask someone to wrap it up or, to do it in a nice way. We're also asked in the draft to be respectful and professional, and I would say respect is earned. If you are respectful to us, you will get respect back. But if you start pulling all kinds of things that are really against the will of the public, you're going to get feedback, and it may not be, it may not be happy feedback. But that's what democracy is all about. I just think that, going back to citizen comment or public comments, if you will, as it was under Chairman Van Sock, that people really didn't, abuse the situation. And most people understood that they needed to be respectful and professional, et cetera, without being reminded by the having the finger of authority wagged at you. We're all adults. The other thing that not being able to address the items on the Plan Commission agenda ahead of the Plan Commission agenda or ahead of the Plan Commission meeting, I think we need to go back to that as well. We only have a few minutes to talk about the issues, and it just doesn't strike me as very welcoming or very inclusive to not be able to speak. There may be an issue on the Plan Commission agenda, and there may be a different issue on the board agenda that we need to be able to speak to those, to both of those as well. And as to signing in, I can see some practicality in filling out your name instead of saying it, your name and address instead of saying it, but what reeks of, we're going to hand these in. These must be handed in, that's the wording, handed into the chairman ahead of the meeting, and then the chairman or some group is going to decide what we can and cannot talk about. I think, again, there was not a lot of abuse of people talking about the weather or things like the tree that came down on Oak Knoll Drive this afternoon that my husband is cleaning up right now, so otherwise he'd be here. So I don't think there was a lot of abuse, and I do think that I would highly recommend just going back to public comments, if you want to call it that, and let's see how it goes. If we find that people are abusing it, or it's, lengthening the meetings, or whatever deleterious effects we might be having from it, let's modify it at that time and give people the respect of knowing what to talk about, when, how long to talk, and how, in what demeanor to address the board. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Who else would like to speak? Anybody else?
For a change, instead of just sitting here not doing anything, this business about the ditches, I'm Mary Graves, if you don't know me by now, on Town Line Road.
We've got your address. Thank you.
Oh, yes. The thing is, there was no problem on the road before the road was redone. And they changed it to where there is no room on the side of the road to walk because it's all soft. And I can't mow in that area anymore, so the town has to take over because I just can't do it anymore. I had my mower up and down hundreds of times doing it before the road was redone. And I think your ordinance has to be changed because people on Town Line, not just myself, but others that are affected by things changing in debris that is put onto the road. And I just feel that there is other people that are affected. My ditches are all filled up now because I can't get the mowing. And so just my own personal problems amounts to other people having the same problems. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? Last call. It's good. I counted, I think, about 17 people in the audience. I know some of you are here for specific agenda items, but it is good to see a large number of people in the audience. I hope that continues. Okay, we're done with citizens' comments, and item 6 is reports. 6A is Administrator, Clerk, Treasurer. Kathy.
Administrator, county recycling, we received our recycling dividend payment in the amount of $25,000, and this is down from 2018 due to the ability for the county to sell the recycled goods. We had budgeted at $56,000. The previous year we received $55,000. I just wanted to make you aware that there are 27 other municipalities that are in this recycling program. Our dividend was the 5th highest rebate this year. I've reached out to the sheriff's office, asked for a 1-year contract renewal as well as a 5-year contract renewal to bring back to the board. I kept the same 5242 setup that we currently have. The 1 year would be without a dedicated truck because we would have to pay 100% of the truck cost if we were to go with a 1 year. Chairman and I sat down with Advanced Disposal to review the complaints that we've been receiving. We talked about our yard waste site. You'll see some new signage there to help communicate with the residents. We wanted to make sure that the residents understood that the Advanced Disposal gentleman is not there to help you with your waste, yard waste, putting it into the dumpster or the compactor. For liability purposes, he's there to make sure that no one falls in the compactor. So he turns the compactor on and off. Our weed commissioner has had 6 town of Waukesha complaints. 3 have been already in compliance. 2 are working on it, and 1 is brand new. There's that report is since Sunday. The budget comparison in the treasurer's area is for general fund. It's $1,746,329. Our general fund expenditures is $1,736,000. Fire inspection revenues, there was no change at $20,000. Our fire inspection expenditures are $23,000. Our capital fund revenues, there was no change at $863,000, and our capital fund expenditures of $30,487. There's no change. In June of each year, I'm required to give you a summary of our cash, what our accounts are, and our general checking account is at Waukesha State Bank. We have a rate of 0.30. We have a balance of $975,765.17. Our money market account at Waukesha State Bank is at a rate of 0.50. We have $1,477,559.87. Our money market at Associated Bank receives 1.79%. We have $256,023.41. Our tax payment account, which is just a savings account essentially, but our tax payments go in there. We get a rate of 0.10 at Waukesha State Bank. We currently have $466,000 $159.28. Our fire department donation savings account is at Waukesha State Bank. It has a rate of 0.25, and the balance in that account is $12,376.57. The fire department donation checking account is also at Waukesha State Bank. It does not receive any interest. It has $2,915.67. We have a CD at Landmark Credit Union that we are earning 2.33%, and it matures January 10th of 2020. We have $152,862.24. We have a CD at Sunset Bank at 2.72%, and that comes due at June 20th, 2020. We have $261,233.05. We have another CD at Citizen Bank at 2.28%. It matures at September 8th, 2020, and the bank balance is $260,709.16. We have another CD at First Federal Bank of Wisconsin at 2.50. That is due March 21st, 2020. $227,958.90. We have a total balance on our bank balance as of May 31st, 2019 of $4,093,563.32. As you can see, I have all of the CDs coming due next year. They all range from 3-month maturities as well as up to 3 years, but I've got them all coming down to 2020 just in case building is done. For the clerk, we've had no public records requests. There are 6 entities on the non-compliance report that's in your packet. 4 are in court. 2 have extended time given to the property owners to get in compliance, and that's the end of my report.
Thank you very much. Anybody in the audience who can repeat all of the account balances, the financial institutions they're placed at, rate of return, and expiration dates, come forward. We do have a prize this evening if anybody can repeat all of that.
There's
No?
a reason we do this only twice a year.
Hopefully that gives you comfort. Okay, DPW, Jerry, is that you? You're on. You're a rock star. We saw it a couple months ago. Let's go.
Good evening. In June, the Public Works Department worked on culvert installations. We did one on Tim Drive, Crestview Court, Summers Hills Drive, Spafford Lane, Center Road. Actually, we did 2 on Crestview Court, but whatever. We've started on some roadside mowing. I know that's kind of an issue, but we're taking care of, visibility and, hazardous areas and whatever, main roads. So we've been working on that, kind of using it as a fill-in. We worked on tree and brush work. We removed all the trees on Getz Drive because that road's going to be paved. And I know I have it on the July, what I'm going to do in July, but we replaced the culvert. I know we shock grazed. Brian, you came out there, we did that. The culvert's replaced, it's ditched, it's ready for, our end of it's done, so it's ready for paving. We worked on routine stuff like grounds maintenance, equipment maintenance. July's a lot of the same. Same thing, tree and brush cutting. We've got vegetation hanging on the roads around signs. We've got a lot of work to do there. We'll address that. We've got some more culvert installations. I got ditch work, that's done on Getz. got some equipment maintenance, because something's gonna break, you know that. Building grounds maintenance, we got some roads that are gonna be paved in July, so we'll be doing shoulder work on those newly paved roads. Roadside maintenance, ditch mowing, respond to job orders, and that's it. Unless you guys call something in.
Okay. Does your report include that you're on vacation next week, or?
No, it's not,
Huh?
it's not on there, but.
Not on there, okay. Thank you. Okay, any questions of the Board of Jerry?
I'd just like to say, Jerry, thanks for everything you've done, and I apologize for the way you were treated at the last meeting.
Well, I voiced my opinion as far as the roadside mowing, and I know you guys have an ordinance, and I know there's a gray area, and there's a mixed emotion between whatever, but I just wanted to state my personal feeling in the way I would like our town roads to look.
Thank you for doing that.
Okay, thank you. We're moving on. Fire Department Chief Pucos, you hanging out in back there?
Run summary for May is 29 ambulance requests, 9 motor vehicle accidents, 7 fire responses. Mutual aid was given twice. Mutual aid was received 12 times. That was all 12 times were part of our paramedic exchange. We have 32 active members. 2 people are on leave of absence, secretary, treasurer, and 3 high school cadets. We had 1 public relations fire prevention activity at the station during May. 2019 fire inspections are continuing, and myself and the assistant chief and one of the deputy chiefs attended classes at the chiefs conference June 19th to 23rd.
Any questions? Thank you very much. Next item, I'm a little scared here, Sheriff's Department. Looks like we have 3 people here tonight. Are we being outnumbered? Are you coming up with a group or what? Yeah. Tell us all who you are and give us your report, please.
Thank you, Board. Captain Mark Mooner from the Sheriff's Office. I have with me here Lieutenant Michael Anderson. He assists me on second shift patrol and carrying out the contract. And then Deputy Moose is your assigned contract deputy for the contract. Just some highlights for the month of May. During that time, Deputy Moose and a few other deputies completed 49 building checks and open door findings. 6 extra patrols were completed throughout the community. 18 traffic stops were completed. 1 process service was made. 4 crashes or accidents occurred within the town during that time. 15 citations were issued through the contract. 3 reports were collected, and we assisted the fire department 11 times. In total, we worked 21 contracted shifts through the month. We also have a focus on traffic saturations due to the construction. I'll just explain what the traffic saturations are. These are above and beyond the contract deputy. We generally bring in a few outside squads from general sheriff's department areas, and we have a high visibility and a targeted enforcement that we do during that time. We completed 2 of those, May 10th and May 20th, and they were focused on the construction area, mainly in the areas of Merrill Hills Road and Town Line Road. They yielded 10 traffic violation stops, 7 citations, and 3 warnings during that time. Also during the month, the deputies took 3 incident reports of interest. One was a man with a gun that occurred on Highway 164 in the area of Lonsdale. Motorists reported that another motorist flashed a gun during the time they were driving down the highway. As a result of that, 2 municipal citations were issued at the request of the complainant, 1 for disorderly conduct and 1 for carrying a concealed weapon. We also investigated criminal damage to property, which occurred in the south 4500 block of Center Road. During that time, between May 24th and May 25th, 1 vehicle was broken into in that area where the windows were smashed. We did investigate 1 suspect, although we could not turn the crime onto that suspect. We also investigated a reported sexual assault. A female reported that sexual assault had happened when she visited on a day pass from Trempealeau County. She was from a group home there. It was later determined that this was a consensual sexual encounter, but it took many hours of the contract deputy to investigate. Some of the other things we're working on, daily, Deputy Moose has a targeted enforcement or extra attention to the construction area, so she works on that daily. And if she is pulled off that, she goes to calls from the citizens. You'll hear about it more next month, but on June 19th, we had a formulation of a first kind of neighborhood watch meeting here at the town hall, and was from citizens in the area of Hammond Avenue. So they're formulating a mini block party in the area of Hammond Avenue, and we'll also be appearing if citizens want to come out and see us and talk to us about concerns in that area. That is what I have for the board.
Questions?
I have a question for you. In your targeted enforcements, the 2 dates that you did in your ongoing that you have Deputy Moose, were there any instances or citations as far as overweights or trucks in a non-trucking zone?
I can have Deputy Moose speak to that.
There were no violations when I was there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor.
Other questions?
Yeah, kind of along with that, one of the #1 complaints that I get from citizens is the violation of our through trucking ordinance. And a couple of years ago, we did a lot of work with the sheriff on that to clean it up, make it more standard, make it more clear. There's been some discussion about pickup trucks and F-350s and 250s owned by residents, which really doesn't apply because our ordinance relates to through trucking. But I'm not aware in the period of time, and it's coming up more now because of the bypass, but have we ever written a citation for overweight? And is there anything we can do to better enforce that and police that?
Yeah, I can speak to that. Thanks for the question. During the spring, especially, that's when throughout the whole county, the sheriff's department has more of a focus on that because of the spring thaw. Deputy Moose actually adjusted her hours off the normal contracted hours, so she came in a little bit earlier with the expectation that there'd be more trucks out at the latter end of first shift rather than the latter end of second shift. So she flexed her hours forward in the day. I know she said that she did make traffic stops on trucks, and it wasn't as much as we thought. We thought we would have a large presence of trucks violating the weight. It is.
So were citations issued in those cases? Oh, they
Yes.
were, okay. That's great, thank you.
We do have a focus on that. Generally, it lasts for a period of about 10 days during the spring, and that's when it's really focused on. But in patrol duties, if that is seen, the deputy would stop the vehicle and take enforcement action as they see appropriate.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions? Thank you for being here, and thank you for delivering your report.
Thank you.
Okay. Item 7, minutes of the meeting of May 23rd, 2019.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we accept the minutes of May 23rd, 2019.
Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, motion by Supervisor Radke, second by Supervisor German to approve the minutes of the meeting May 23rd, 2019. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That passes unanimously. 8, a whole series of items here for discussion and possible action. 8A is discussion, possible action to appoint and confirm Tom Kolinsky as a member of the Fire Commission for a 3-year term ending April 30th, 2022. In your package, you should have a resume of his that gives some information. Are you prepared to act on that appointment?
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve his appointment of Tom Kalinsky for Fire Commission.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? Okay, motion has been made and seconded to approve the confirmation of Tom Kalinsky to the Fire Commission for a 3-year term ending April 30th, 2022. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously. Item B. Discussion possible action to approve an operator's license for Dustin A. Davis. This item was held over from the June 13th, 2019 meeting. If my recollection is correct, I think that was your request, Supervisor Radke.
It was.
So where would we like to pick up on that item?
The reason that I held it over is because of the comments that were placed on there by his boss, who I see is here. So have at it.
Sure, please. Close to the microphone.
Okay, is this good? So Dustin's been with us for, well, it'll be almost 10 or 11 months now. I don't know exactly from the moment I wrote that letter. The timeline's been about a month's difference. He started with us serving, like prep cooking and different things. And as you guys have probably noticed, we have been growing at a very rapid rate through the past few years. And my husband and I started out with 4 employees, and we are currently, between part-time and full-time, have 42 people, including ourselves, running the operation. So we have been growing at this rapid pace, trying to keep up, and Dustin has worked for a lot of other big restaurant chains, dealing in high volume and things of the nature that we are learning about how to handle and do every day. And he has been nothing but a great resource of information, a person I can trust when I go home at night and try to get some sleep since we operate such long hours, and a really good person to keep the staff motivated and excited about coming to work and interested in what they're doing. Just basically having another person like myself or my husband at the same level involved. And he has made tremendous changes to help our everyday get a little bit easier. And I trust him implicitly at this point, and I'm very pleased with the results. And he is overseeing the kitchen and dining room at the moment as an assistant GM. And myself and another manager are still overseeing the bar, but with somebody being that hands-on, I feel it would be important for them to have a liquor license for whatever situations may arise. So that's where we're at.
Okay, thank you, Jessica. Questions?
Well, I'll start it out. Obviously, there's a colorful history here, if that's the best word for it. I don't know necessarily what our responsibility is. He doesn't work for us. I mean, you're the one who has to deal with him on a day-to-day basis, but we do have some responsibility as to who we allow a liquor license to be issued to. I don't know if Attorney Macy can help us in educating us on what our decision can or can't be in regards to that.
Certainly. First, as you stated, you have a responsibility to the public that you don't license persons that shouldn't be licensed. I think that's the simplest way to say it without going into all the legalese. The procedure is that this is, you have sort of a 3-step procedure, although I've not seen in my limited tenure here going to the second or third step. This is the first time I've seen. The first step is to review the application. If there's no issues or concerns, you approve them. The second step is to call them in for this informal conference to see if first they appear, if they're still really interested and they appear, because we have, believe it or not, many people who do not appear for the informal conference. And this is the time where you decide whether to issue the license or set it for a formal hearing, because we always recommend that you give people due process and an opportunity to formally present their case if they want to. The owner has informally presented her case, and we don't generally go into a lot of questions at this stage. If the property owner wishes, the applicant wishes to make a statement, they can, but they're not obligated to. If you have questions for them, you can ask them. What it boils down to is this is a new license, it's not a renewal. You have a right to a renewal, you do not have a right to a new license, but you cannot turn down a license for illegal purposes. And that's what the purpose of the hearing is to make sure that the reasons for denial are legal reasons. Does that make sense? And so we always want to give the applicants an opportunity to have the hearing, a formal hearing, if you feel it's necessary. Now, many times when there's a denial, either at the first level or the second level, they can deny it and then give them the right to a hearing by a letter. You say the reasons were based on your record, but you have every right to have a hearing. So at any time you deny, and I'm not, always going to be here, so I'd like to lay out the procedure, because you've never had one that I'm aware of that you've denied. If you have, I'm not aware of it. So I can answer any other questions, but that's in short. It's all 125.12 of the Wisconsin statutes. And as I said, there's a big difference between once someone has a license, they have a right to have a renewal of that license. If they don't have a license, they don't have a right to a license, but they have a right to due process.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Davis is here. I think if you heard Attorney Macy said you're not compelled to speak, but if you'd like to address the board, the opportunity is yours and the decision is yours.
My name is Dustin Davis. I've been a restaurant manager most of my life. If you go back, I've had a liquor license in just about every county. I've never had any problems or issues with obtaining one in my life. I did have a mistake with an OWI, and that is where this now becomes a thing. I have definitely learned my lesson from it and have proceeded to better my life through it. This is where I joined onto the tallies to kind of pursue a new career and future there with them. As she said, I've taken on a huge role there. I am there most late nights, so they can go home and have a better quality of life. And for me to be there and have a liquor license, it just seems to make sense.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Davis. Any questions of him informally that anybody would like to pose?
I agree with Supervisor Radke that this is quite a colorful past you have. But I'm also a guy that likes to see people succeed and give them a second chance. Is there some way we can do this on a probationary basis, or if something goes awry, or is this just a done deal, period, and it moves on?
May I answer that question?
Absolutely.
Mr. Chairman? Yes, we do see, and I have conferred, as some of you may know, I teach the advanced liquor license course for the municipal clerks. And so attorneys call me from around the state, and they ask me that question often, whether I feel that the state statutes allow conditions to be placed on alcohol beverage licenses, and I do believe reasonable conditions. I had a situation in the town of Genesee a number of years ago, similar situation. The owner was here, did a great job representing the person, and they said, we want both of you back in 6 months to see if there's been any problems. We want an update from the officers in 6 months to see if there's any problems. That's just as an example of a condition that I've seen, placed on there. That one worked very well. There was no incidences or no problems. They were happy to come back and report that there were no problems and things like that. So the answer to your question is yes, and that's a sample condition I've seen.
Okay, that's kind of where I was heading, is if there is, and I could support that at this point.
Would you like to put that into the form of a motion?
I would move to approve Dustin Davis's liquor license with conditions that in 6 months, he and Jessica come back and report to us, and if we have any other issues with the sheriff's department, have them report to us that there's been problems. But I think this is a way for him to get back into work and in the work that he's been doing in the past. But it also gives us a chance to make sure that he toes the line, if you want to put it that way.
Okay, is there a second to the motion?
I'll second that.
Okay.
I do have a couple of comments.
Sure, for discussion, go ahead.
Dustin, you mentioned that you made one mistake in the past with an OWI. I think this is a little more than just one, if I'm not mistaken.
Are you speaking of current or when I was a child?
I'm speaking of your past and your history that comes up when we do a background check on you.
Okay, and that's
So I don't know-
understandable.
I don't know if you want to say that that's when you were a child. but-
When I was much younger, I definitely made learning mistakes, as everybody does.
Okay.
But more recently, on everything that has happened in the last couple of years, you are going to see a possession charge that was dropped to paraphernalia for something that I have still not physically seen to begin with. I somehow got pulled over. I was never shown or told anything. They wanted me to give names. I didn't give names. He drove me back to my car, and 4.5 months later, I received a citation that was dropped down to paraphernalia, in which I still didn't see. But at the time, my attorney didn't want me to fight that, since I had the OWI situation going on. With that situation in itself, I was on my way to Walgreens. I was in a parking spot, and apparently the only reason that I was pulled over, or I'm sorry, the officer came to speak with me, is because I wasn't in the lines fully. Everything, we talked, everything went fine. He took me to the hospital, drew blood. I was released to my wife. Other comments were made, but whatever, on his part. I was released to my wife. I went back to my car and I made the terrible decision. Originally, I was going to grab my wallet and my coat, but I got back into my vehicle and I was pulled over a block away from my house from Walgreens. And this time he administered a breathalyzer, because the first time, well, it's technically the second time, he had no reason to pull me over to begin with, because a breathalyzer was never given and blood work was not back. But this is neither here nor there. Again, I made a mistake that I suffered from and I am still moving forward with.
Okay, thank you. We can continue discussion. I'd like to just kind of clarify the motion, if I could, or even start that out with an ask of a question. Typically, these licenses are issued for a year and renewed annually, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And I want to just a little bit paraphrase, if I understand. Supervisor Stigler, your motion would be to grant the license, but the conditions would be for Mr. Davis and Ms. Stallinger to return to this very room to a board meeting. I took a real quick peek here. I believe, if I'm mistaken, that January 9th would be a meeting that's a little bit more than 6 months, but sometimes we stumble over Christmas. If we were to, meetings that were assigned a date certain, would that be acceptable to you on that date, that they would return and basically report in, if you will? And additionally, we'd be looking for any kind of reports from the Sheriff's Department at that point in time. Is that, I don't mean to put words in your mouth, but is that the essence of it?
Yes, that's fine.
And Mr.
Just
Chairman,
went up.
I would need you to add that if there are any violations of, that the board deems to be significant, he will have to turn in his license. I mean, that's got to, because, you know, that's what you're saying, is you're going to give him a 6-month review, but at that time, he has to voluntarily relinquish it, because, I mean, I just think that's what you mean.
Yes, I guess that's my intention, was that after that time, if there's violations, it's automatically rescinded, so.
So that's a friendly amendment to the
Exactly.
maker of the motion and the seconder of the motion.
Okay, so we do want to give them a year license, not a 6-month license.
No, correct. I believe that's the procedures of 1-year license, but when he's a probation period in here of 6 months, I guess that's that's the direction I was going. And we have that option to rescind it if there's any violations or any problems.
Okay, so I think the motion was made by Supervisor Stigler and Supervisor Radke. You were the second on the motion, were you?
I was.
Okay. Are those clarifications, friendly amendments acceptable to you?
They are.
Okay. Any further discussion? I sense you want to speak. Go ahead.
I have a few questions. So we appreciate you guys obviously giving us the option for this probationary process, since it's never happened before. So we will reconvene, just to clarify, 6 months from now. At that point, will he be reapplying for said license? And if there are no violations, will it just will the probationary period be over, or will it be re-extended? Just want to know how it will work moving forward. And then secondly, I'm happy to forward over also just to give peace of mind that we have a complete sobriety standard at our work. We do not allow any employee punched in to have any sort of alcohol or any type of anything that would prohibit them from working properly. While they're working, it is a piece of paper they sign when they come and start working for us. Shortly after the city started enforcing that rule, since the town did not take it on, we took it on ourselves as we feel it's more professional.
I'm going to assume, and if this is incorrect, others can head me in the right direction. I'm assuming that you would appear here on the 9th of January of next year at the town board meeting. If there are no issues whatsoever at that point in time, I'm assuming then there wouldn't be an additional probationary period per se. I'm making that assumption. If there's nothing, and that would, run through the 30th of June? Do those all end at the same time, or what?
Okay.
So the license would go through June 30th of 2020. Is that correct? Attorney Macy, is that correct?
Yes, and I think the only caveat, I think you correctly stated what I assumed had been the intent when I heard it also, and that's why I added that he has to turn it back if there's problems and they deem significant, and they have to make that determination. If there are minor violations, I would only say I could think that they could extend the probation another 6 months. But if there's nothing, I think you correctly stated it, then his license is just good till the end of the year.
Okay.
And then he'd apply for a renewal at the end of next year, which is a totally different procedure. There's no anticipation that he has to re-up and pay another fee 6 months from now. If
I
that,
just wanted to ask to
that's,
make sure.
I'm glad you're clarifying this. Those are all great questions. So we all know it's on the record and everybody knows. So we're just gonna look at the records, see, have a statement from yourself and himself on how it's going, check with the officer. If there are no violations, I assume they'll be glad, and if there are major violations, they'll ask him to turn it in. If there are minor violations, I guess they can decide if additional conditions are deemed necessary.
Got it, thank you.
Okay, does everybody understand where we're at? Assuming we were ready to vote then, so we'll call the question. If everybody understands what the motion is, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed. All right, passed unanimously. The best of luck. Congratulations to you on your business success. I know that's not the topic of discussion, but that's inspirational to all of us. And the best of luck to all of you. We'll look to see you back here on January 9th, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, item next 8C is discussion and possible action to approve an operator's license for Samantha Hanson. You got information in your packet.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve the operator license for Samantha Hanson.
Is there a second to the motion? I will second the motion. So the motion is by Supervisor Radke, second by Chairman Fisher, to approve the operator's license for Samantha Hanson. Discussion. There's no discussion. I sense you're ready to vote. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that passes unanimously. 8D, discussion and possible action on an ordinance to create the position, quote, lieutenant/inspector, unquote, and approve the job description and to repeal the position of full-time firefighter/EMT/inspector. This item was held over from the June 13th, 2019 meeting. Chief, I'm assuming you're going to speak to this issue while you're headed towards the microphone. Is that a good assumption?
I think so.
All right, go ahead.
Can I ask that we associate this with the next item too, because they're kind of related?
Sure.
If that's all right. Attorney Macy asked us to look at the ordinance relative to having a position, and we went through and reviewed section 16-23, the organization of the fire department, which addresses that information. It addresses that we maintain 5 lieutenants. It creates full-time and part-time positions. So that was already addressed, but we did find some updates that had to be made. In the copy that I gave you, under 1623 C2B, we wanted to insert the word guidelines in there because it's policy and guidelines, not just policies. The changes that we made in the ordinance, the red lettering is verbiage that's added. The blue lettering with the hash line through it is language that should be eliminated. On the next page, under 3B, also we added the word guidelines there with policies, and the same under section 4 lieutenants. We added guidelines to the policies under there. Also in section 4 lieutenants, we added an S to the word chiefs because it's all the deputy chiefs, and took out of EMS. Includes all the deputy chiefs that are involved in that, not just the EMS chief, deputy chief. The last change that we made is under 16-27, membership standards. When you get down to item 3, we took out to be done by Waukesha County Technical College. Physicals are no longer done at the college. We do them through Pro Healthcare, and we just eliminated the language where they're done entirely, because that could change based on where we choose to, or where the town chooses to go for those. That leaves the next line, members choosing to have physicals on their own. That comes out completely because there's a guideline that we have to follow for specific physical. Most common physicians, family physicians and such, don't have or don't follow that criteria. So we want to eliminate line 4 completely, and then that changes the next line from 5 to 4.
Chief, is there a requirement for specific doctors to do those physicals? I know that there's a certified list, and only those that are certified can do CDL physicals.
As far as I know, there's not a specific certified list, but there is a list of things that have to be performed during that physical. Does that answer your question? I'm not sure I answered your question.
I guess I want to be sure that if there is a requirement that they have to be certified, that's where we send them to. I know there's a federal listing that came out, again, specific for truck drivers in particular,
Right.
But I don't know if that applies to what we're talking about here, but I don't want to be in violation of that type of ordinance, because the problem was that they would physician hop if they had an issue, and one physician would flunk them, then they would go to even the ones that were set up at truck stops and eventually find one that would pass them.
Right.
And I guess I want to make sure that we're following the rules on it.
I know that we're following the rules as to what has to be completed in the physicals. I don't know if they're on a certified list or not. Pro Healthcare provides, through Pro Healthcare, they provide that service for us, so I can find that out. I don't know for sure.
I believe he goes, they go to the same place that I send all drug tests and CDL testing, DOT testing to.
Which is fine, but not every physician there or underling to that is certified to be able to do those.
I believe Pro Healthcare
Right.
would know though.
I can check with our contact at Pro Health. Dan? You also made a change in 16-23 sub C sub 4. Also, you have the town crossed off for the fire department member, and then also you added guidelines. Just
Oh,
forgot to mention those,
yep,
and I
I
wanted
missed
to make
that
sure we
one.
got that.
Yep, that's correct.
Okay, so there's really two pieces to that, and that's fine. I probably should have, since they kind of go hat in hand, read in that 8E is discussion, possible action on ordinance 2019-0-06 to amend parts of section 16 fire prevention protection, which is what you just walked us through.
Correct. Correct.
Okay. So we, I think, need to take these as two separate items. The one would be to approve the creation of the position and the job description, which you have in your packet, which is, what, some 2.5 pages long, give or take?
Yeah, the other document is the job description for the
Right.
full-time position.
Yes.
It's actually not part of the ordinance, but it's
Understood.
the job description for that and the modifications to that job description.
Right. So we need, I would think, the appropriate action, tell me if I'm wrong, we need to act on approval of that full-time position and the job description. That's separate and apart from the possible action on the amendment to the ordinance, right? There's two components to it?
Correct.
Okay. Everybody understand what that's all about? Is anybody prepared to make a motion? I think we need to take them in that order. So a motion to create the position of lieutenant/inspector and to approve the job description and to repeal the position of full-time firefighter EMT inspector. Anybody prepared to make that motion to proceed?
I'd like to make a motion to create that position.
Okay, is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Any further discussion? Okay, motion by Supervisor German, Supervisor Stigler with the second. All in favor indicate by,
I have a question for the chief. if I may,
okay,
Mr. Chairman.
go, please.
Under additional requirements, we have bullet item 2 and 3, applicant must pass a written examination and applicant successfully complete a candidate physical ability test. Can you speak a bit about what the written exam is and the physical ability test? And with that, I wonder out loud if we should be somewhat more specific.
The written test that we use is provided through the state of Wisconsin. The state of Wisconsin in partnership, they produce exams for firefighters, police officers, public work personnel. We use that service for the testing, and we use the firefighter exam through that organization as the written exam. The physical exam is the CPAT test, our CPAT physical, which is a recognized physical throughout the state of Wisconsin. It's been recognized by the firefighter unions as an acceptable physical agility test for firefighters, so that when they go through that test, it's uniform throughout the state. It's been accepted by all the firefighter unions as well as the municipalities. So when they give that test, it's something that isn't going to be disputed. In other words, we don't make up our own physical test and then have to defend it. It's already been created, and the folks that administer it are doing it correctly, and it's an accepted form of physical testing.
So I would
Does that
ask.
answer your question?
It does, thank you. I would ask that we list in the additional requirements for the written examination what the source of that is specifically.
Okay. I don't have the exact title with me
You
tonight.
quoted
but
it, and I'll trust that you'll add it.
We'll put it in there correctly, though. I'll get the
Yeah.
exact,
I just
title.
think it would be helpful moving forward so that there's consistency.
yeah, I might have
mean,
kind
written
of,
test could be,
yeah, I might have
like the
kind of,
chief.
I might have kind of paraphrased it a little,
Sure.
so I'll make sure we put the correct language
And
there.
then the same for the physical ability test.
Can do that.
That'd be great. Thank
Okay, a friendly amendment, any objection to the maker of the motion was Supervisor German?
No, I'm fine with that.
And the second was Supervisor Stigler, so the friendly amendment. Okay, everybody understand where we're at then is the motion?
Just a question.
Sure, go.
Chief, is that just a one-time test and physical?
Right now it is, yes. I foresee somewhere in the future that it's going to become an annual requirement. But it hasn't been put that way yet.
Okay, so just quickly restating then, the motion is to create the position of lieutenant/inspector, approve the job description with the friendly amendment that Supervisor Durr suggested, and to repeal the position of full-time firefighter/EMT/inspector. If everybody understands the motion, then we will proceed to vote. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you, Chief. Item 8F for discussion and possible action. Discussion and possible action on the draft notice of, quote, citizens' comments, unquote.
Did we act on the ordinance?
Oh, I'm sorry, I beg your pardon. You need to kick me under the table. We didn't act on 8.3, which is the ordinance itself. Discussion and possible action on ordinance 2019-0-06. My apologies, we did not act on that.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to accept ordinance 2019-0-06 and amend the parts of section 16 as listed by the chief.
Okay, is there a second to the motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, I don't think I need to restate that, so the motion by Supervisor Durr, second by Supervisor German. All in favor indicate by saying.
I have a comment.
Oh, go.
Your administrator drafted the ordinance, and she's doing a good job. Every time she drafts one, it gets better, but there are a few minor things, and so I would just ask that you allow me to continue to train her how to write the ordinances, and just to give you an example, like very minor, but after the word do ordain as follows, or does ordain as follows, you gotta put section 1. You've got a section 2 and a section 3, but that's in chapter 16. It's not material, but we generally divide each of these into separate sections, but I think it's clear. But we're getting closer, and I just wanted to say that, you know, she and I will probably have a brief conversation where she'll send over the final draft, and I'll okay it.
So
Thank
with
you.
that compliment on your, well-deserved compliment on your work, is everybody comfortable moving forward that way? Thank you. Then all in favor to keep saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That passed unanimously. Now, thank you, Chief. All right. Then on to 8F is discussion, possible action on the draft ordinances, citizens' comments for use by the town board and plan commission meetings as well as at their joint meetings. This item was discussed during a meeting of the committee of the whole on June 13th, 2019. So we've got some text and some things in the packet. We had some citizens' comments and so forth. Where would the board like to proceed on this item?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to do away with all the requirements under citizens' comments as they appear in the agenda, except for the fact that during public hearings, we limit it to 3 minutes to your discretion.
Okay, so what you're proposing then is entitled citizen comments or public comments? Preference one way or the other? I don't want to dive too deep into it, but you're saying the only provision on there would be to, the first sentence of those is to limit to 3 minutes, reasonably extended at the discretion of the chairperson of the meeting. Is that, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but is that the essence of what your motion is?
Yes, I think 3 minutes should apply to public hearings because obviously the public hearings take a long time, and I think we should limit that to 3 minutes. But if people come in and want to speak on issues, I don't have a problem with that. If we want to have people involved in our town government, I think that we need to do that.
So for the public comments or citizen comments, and I want to differentiate that between a public hearing and Attorney Macy, I sense maybe I'm going to talk to that. With regard to public comments or citizens' comments on regular agendas is different from public hearing. You're not asking to limit that at all. Is that correct?
No, not on citizen comments, on
Okay.
public, but for public hearings, I guess I would like to see that stay for that, for the public hearings, they have 3 minutes.
Okay. All right. So
Unfortunately, Mr. Chairman, that's not on the agenda. We wouldn't be able to, we're only.
the public hearing part of it,
Public
agreed.
hearing.
So that's for
He gets-
another,
yeah.
that's for another day, anything about public hearings. So we're just dealing with citizen comments or public comments or whatever you want to call it by name. So your motion would be to strike all of the verbiage and so forth and simply have it appear on the agenda as citizen comments or public comments. Is that the essence of it?
That is.
Okay. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, discussion.
From my point of view, that's far too vague. I support citizen comments very, very close to the way they are on the agendas now. While I was not here for that committee of the whole, I spent a significant amount of time reviewing it. It did bother me that the direction of the participants from the board who did attend that meeting were moving in a direction of significantly more restrictive. It's interesting to me that there seemed to be concurrence from the other 4 board members that it was going to become more restrictive, which I would not have supported, but here we are 2 weeks later and we're going to make it an open forum. Often what people who don't regularly attend board meetings don't necessarily understand, which I did not understand when I first started attending, is that this is a meeting of the board that is conducted and open for everyone to view, but it's not an opportunity for people to regularly communicate their thoughts and opinions with the board. Many communities, including this one, provide a forum for that, which I think is good, but making it an open-ended opportunity for people to opine on things, I don't think is healthy. I disagree with some comments that have been made that it hasn't been abused. I feel that there are many times in my more than 15-year history of attending these meetings, and some as a spectator and some as a board member, that there's been many times where it's been abused, and so I wouldn't support just such an open-ended opportunity for people to speak. I would also not support as how it became more restrictive following the committee of the whole 2 weeks ago. So perhaps we could get somewhere in between, but that's would be my position on this motion.
Okay, thank you. Who else?
I guess one of my concerns is that this opens it up to anybody. So people that live far outside of our municipality could come here and speak, and we have no recourse against that. I mean, we've seen how some projects have been built up by their friends, and they've come in and spoken on their behalf, and I guess I don't think that that's a good use of our time.
Okay, anything else? I'll guess weigh in on some of this. For me, the big picture part of it is I think we should be encouraging public participation or citizen participation. I think that's a good and healthy thing. I guess I don't know, let's say ambivalent, but maybe that's a bit about it, whether we need to state in here that people have to comport themselves in a respectful and a professional manner. I mean, whether we state that in words or not, I think that's the expectation, and I think that's the pretty much going to be the rules going forward. That's only reasonable. Whether we need to state that to people, or whether in the administration of the building or of the meeting, who's ever chairing the meeting or what or not, can basically lay down those expectations. Same thing with the amount of time, even with regard to items on the agenda. I mean, I guess I could support this motion, but it would be with some reservation, and that would be if we cannot be sufficiently respectful and self-disciplined and everything to make it work, then I think some of these things have to be put into place. I mean, the good, and I'm jumping around a bit, the good news on this is, I think it's good news, this is not an ordinance or an ordinance revision or what or not. I'm willing to give things a bit of a trial and tighten them up if they need to be. That said, I do have two other comments, and I know Attorney Macy put this together and I appreciate it. We have a reference to our Town of Waukesha Code of Ordinances, Section 2-54B2, which is one of the things up there on the screen. And I'll paraphrase that, or maybe you want to jump into that, but that basically gives a person, firm, or corporation that desires to present any matter to the town board for review and consideration shall make a written request therefore to the town clerk treasurer not later than 4 p.m. 7 days immediately preceding the date of the special or regular meeting, et cetera, et cetera. To me, and I think town residents should be aware of that, to me that basically says town residents have access to the agenda if you follow those rules to do that. To me, that's even wider than putting that under citizen comments. If somebody has something topically they want to put on the agenda, I think it gives people access to that. So that's kind of a reminder, and if somebody's got a different takeaway on that, say so, but that's citizen access to the agenda. And the other thing that I know we had a bit of a brief discussion on it, whatever we do with the language here for citizen comments or public comments, I believe that we should read in written comments that come from citizens, constituents, particularly if they are unable to attend the meeting and they send something in and ask that it be read into the meeting under citizens' comments. I believe we should incorporate that into what we do. So those are my thoughts. Further discussion on the motion?
Could you repeat exactly what the motion is, please?
Well, the motion was made by Supervisor Stigler, and I think it's to place on the agenda, and maybe we can clarify it, either public comments or citizens' comments and nothing more. Is that the essence of it? And I sure don't mean to put words in your mouth.
No, that's what I'm trying to do, I guess. I'm trying to open this up that people can come in and talk and not be restricted, but that's what I'm trying to accomplish here, is not to be restrictive. And I think the chairman has the discretion on a lot of these things to do that as the meeting is in progress, to change things or decide if there's too much time being spent. I think you have that discretion to regulate that during the meeting, and we don't need to have it in writing.
Okay, so citizens' comments, public comments, does your motion incorporate one or the other, or does it matter to you?
I guess I don't understand what you're saying.
Do you want to call it citizen comments or public comments, or does it matter not to you which it is?
For clarification on here, it's citizen comments on our agenda, and that's what I will use then.
Citizen comments,
Yes.
okay. Further discussion?
I do have to make one caveat that the chairman has some discretion, but person's First Amendment constitutional right to freedom of speech will override most of what the chairman can and do if there is no policy. I just, everybody has to be reminded, I guess, I don't mean it that way, but your First Amendment right to freedom of speech is going to overrule as long as someone is being professional and polite and continuing not to repeat themselves and things like that. They have a right to speak, and that's why some communities have policies. I'm not trying to talk you out of it, but I just want you to know that the chairman's powers are not all encompassing. You have constitutional rights under this when you have this on the agenda.
And maybe even put it another way, we don't have a time limitation or that type of thing, and somebody decides that they've got a constitutional right to free speech to stand up and talk for 45 minutes or something, I mean, from my perspective, then this is gonna have to be tightened up and put some of that language in. Is that fair? I'm kind of looking at this, frankly, kind of as a bit of a trial, if you will. And that trial pretty much is going to be on the shoulders of the people that come forward here. I mean, it's a little, my preference a bit would probably to have some restrictions on it, but I'm willing to give it a trial, and it'll be I think that frankly is a test, and I'm looking, we lost a few people, but handful of people in the audience, people watching on YouTube or what or not. I a little bit look at this as kind of a privilege not to be abused. Maybe that's not appropriate choice of words, but I think for me, the tone on that going forward is going to be set by the people who come up to speak. I don't know if that gives any of the rest of you comfort, but this could be, if we were to approve this, this could be change the meeting after things get out of sorts. Is that fair?
Oh, absolutely. Every public comments that I've written policies for, it's because of problems that have arisen.
Sure.
Everybody starts with citizen comments, and then only because of issues that have arisen have they decided. Vernon's was given as a sample, and I know what happened in Vernon to create that policy. So, and Richfield's is even more restrictive, and North Shore is even more restrictive. It's because of problems. So you're absolutely right, Mr. Chair.
Okay, further discussion.
I'm willing to take that chance.
Anybody else? Are you ready to vote? Okay, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, so the vote, as I heard it, is 3-2 with Supervisors Stigler, German, and Chairman Fisher voting aye, and Supervisors Duran Radke voting nay. Have I got that correct? Okay, thank you. Then we'll move on. Item 8G then is discussion and possible action on Ordinance 36-13B, maintenance of public ditches, responsibility to maintain. This item was discussed during the June 13th, 2019 meeting, so that's the way it's written on the agenda. And maybe Kathy, you want to just even explain for a minute? I know you put
So I left the agenda item open for you all to discuss the ordinance 36-13 sub B. I also, in your packet, put a ordinance to repeal chapter 13, chapter 36-13 sub B. I was directed by the chairman to create an ordinance, but I wanted to give the board the ability to also discuss more than just an ordinance to repeal.
And Mr. Chairman, I just want to
Sure,
make
go
it
ahead.
very clear for the record, I am strongly recommending you adopt this ordinance based on the action taken at last month's meeting. You directed the DPW director to violate this ordinance, so I recommend you repeal this ordinance and send it back to Cal as part of my opinion and the actions that you worked on tonight. But to be consistent with last month's, meeting's decision, I strongly recommend you repeal the ordinance.
Okay, and that specifically would be repealing section 36-13B. Have I got that right? I believe. Is that correct, Kathy?
That's correct.
Okay. Discussion or a motion?
So
I'd like-
just so I'm clear on understanding what the attorney's saying, is at the last meeting, we opted to ignore our existing ordinance, and now at the next board meeting, 2 weeks later, we're looking at actually doing it properly? Is that what I'm hearing? Kinda seems backwards to me.
Well, I just want to make sure we do things right. If you were here, you knew that I said, well, then repeal the ordinance. If you don't want to follow the ordinance, you should repeal the ordinance. And they voted after a lengthy discussion. I'm not sure you couldn't have repealed it last month if you were of a mind to, but I think the motion was made and the motion was passed, and that's fine. And so the chairman's job, and he did his job properly, is to bring it back for consideration. I don't think it does any good to talk about whether we should have done it in a different order, or you may be correct, but that's moot. Right now, we're dealing with the agenda item at hand, please.
Well, I don't necessarily know if that's moot. I know in the past that we've had issues with illegal things happening on the board or allegedly, and now it kind of looks like that's pretty plain and clear, and we're trying to cover it up. But I get it, you're trying to get us legal.
Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion to repeal section 36-13.
Okay, so your motion, is there a second to the motion?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, so the motion, as I understand it, would be to adopt ordinance number 2019-07, I think I've got that correctly, which would be an ordinance to repeal chapter 36, entitled Streets, Sidewalks, and Other Public Places, section 36-13, entitled Maintenance of Public Ditches, responsibility to maintain, subparagraph B. That's the motion. That's the second. Further discussion.
So for the attorney, so I guess I don't understand how the fact that the board chose to violate its own ordinance 2 weeks ago and then decides to, change the ordinance, means that all of a sudden they didn't violate the ordinance that was in effect 2 weeks ago.
I didn't say that.
Okay.
They were told 2 weeks ago that it violated the ordinance. There was a lengthy discussion. That wasn't a surprise to anybody.
No.
You know, and I take offense. I didn't mince any words. Nobody here minced any words that there was a cover-up. It's now we're going back to, if we find that there was something that was, you know, being done that isn't consistent with the ordinance, we always go back and fix the ordinance. And I believe you did state it that way too, Mr. Supervisor, but I don't think there was a cover-up. I think it was a good discussion last meeting, and everything was on the table and everything was up front. You know.
So, I mean, there's a world of questions here. So now the town is gonna take on the responsibility for all ditches. Do we have any concept of what this is gonna do from a budgetary point of view?
This is simply about repealing this part of the ordinance at this point in time. It doesn't speak to anything about what might happen going forward. It's simply to repeal this at this point in time.
I'm sorry, but I beg to differ. I mean, the current ordinance says that the responsibility of maintenance of ditches is the responsibility of the landowner that abuts the right of way. That's what this says. And if we remove that, that means it then becomes the responsibility of the town. And that has enormous budgetary impact, of which we have absolutely no budget this year and nothing to compare it to moving forward. And to remove this and take on that responsibility without any kind of financial analysis or understanding of how we would fund it, I mean, that's just flat out irresponsible for a governing body to do. I mean, there are costs associated with maintaining the ditches, and we don't have any idea what those costs are. Unless somebody does, and I'd be all ears to hear it if they do.
Mr. Chairman, may I respond, although this is premature because it'll be part of my opinion?
Absolutely.
There is limited, and this is the discussion we had with the DPW director last meeting, and I'm sure you probably listened to it as part of your research. He and I didn't agree as to what had to be done. You have to make sure stop signs can be seen. You do not have to mow any, we used to have a great deal of mowing on the freeways in the past, and now some places get one cut a year.
If that.
If that. And there are lots of places. So repealing this ordinance does not bind you to cut people's ditches. You've always you've always had the responsibility.
But repealing this ordinance transfers the responsibility of the ditch from the homeowner to the town, correct?
You've always had the responsibility. You transfer the responsibility to the property owner. If the property owner didn't do it, as we had the discussion last month, you had the obligation to do it, and then you had the right to charge them back. Now you don't have you do not have the right to charge them back. That's what you're losing by this.
So that's what I said. I thought that's what I said.
But I don't know what you're,
Removing this ordinance
Good.
transfers the responsibility of the maintenance from the homeowner to the town.
And all I'm saying is that it has to be clear in everybody's mind what maintenance means. From a legal standpoint, the maintenance obligations are much less than what property owners currently do. You have no obligation to ever go cut anybody's ditch unless it's creating a legal safety problem, which is, the only time we see court cases on this, gentlemen, is when the stop sign is blocked by the tree. The municipality is put on notice that the tree is blocking the stop sign, and then the municipality delays in not fixing it. That's one of the only examples of maintenance of ditches, that and flooding, which, Vernon just had a very serious situation on flooding, and they went out and fixed those, and we're gonna deal with the flooding. But those are the only two instances that generally you see a legal obligation, and that's the only point that I wanna make sure everybody understands, is from a legal standpoint. That the policies, what you decide to do by cutting the main roads, that's a policy decision. That's the decision you made. I respect that.
I want to just back up a half a step to what happened 2 weeks ago, and if you want to say that we did something illegal or something, fine, go ahead. But the discussion 2 weeks ago, from my perspective, and the reason I supported the motion to allow the town DPW to go out at their discretion and knock down some weeds was all about safety. When we've got reports and people coming to me reporting blocked signs and so forth, I think, to my mind, there's an imperative to do something about that for public safety. Whatever our ordinance says, if people not doing that, we need to move on for safety purposes. I'm the one that asked immediately following that meeting or within a couple days thereof to have this put on the agenda. And Kathy did it so we can address it tonight. So if you think that's some huge transgression, fine, lay it at my feet. But I thought the imperative for public safety was the overriding factor, and I stand by that position.
Well, I'm here to tell you that there was a whole lot of mowing that took place that had absolutely nothing to do with safety, that are hundreds and hundreds of feet from any sign, let alone a stop sign, including the property that's abutted by 2 supervisors that sit on this board.
No, Mr. Doer, actually, I mowed Glendale Road from the railroad tracks to 164 with my tractor. I can take pictures of it and send it to you if you'd like.
All right, we need to find a way to move on. I believe there's...
Mr. Chairman, I
Okay, go ahead.
I have a lot of concerns, again, with the cost of this. We just heard the gentleman from Pialis who told us he spent 1,000 hours just on the ditches in front of his place, and we're saying that there's gonna be very minimal cost to the town and in the interest of safety, and we can rub it any way that we want, but we're looking at a significant amount of dollars for a fairly limited DPW department. Now, if we wanna do this, I think, as was pointed out at the last meeting, that we've got to be pretty specific about it. you know, if we're gonna say that it's in regards to safety, in regards to signage, or particular water issues, I mean, that's great, but it's gonna take a little bit of time to do that. To just say the main roads or at the DPW discretion, or whatever we wanna say, leaves a very vague impression out there, and you're gonna have citizens coming to you saying, well, why aren't you cutting the ditch in front of my house, or there's grass clumps, or I'm just afraid of leaving this as open as it is, that we're setting ourselves up to fail, and it's gonna be a big cost to the town.
The only decision that is on the agenda tonight is whether or not to rescind the ordinance. It's that simple. Further discussion? If not, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Opposed.
All right, I believe that vote was 3-2 with with Supervisor German, Supervisor Stigler, and Chairman Fisher voting aye, and Supervisors Radke and Durr voting nay. Do I have that correct? Okay, thank you. All right, the next item on the agenda is 8H, discussion and possible action on ordinance 2019-0-08 to amend 40-27 (C) local speed limits, 25 miles per hour speed zones to add Point Drive. Do you have something to share with us why this is on the agenda?
Yes. So I received a call from town of Genesee, and they noticed that they did not have a sign up on Point Drive. They went ahead and added Point Drive to their ordinance at 25 miles an hour. We currently do not have Point Drive in our ordinances either. We do have a sign out there at 35. They have the other side of the road at 25. And then down the road, we have it at 35, and then town of McWanago has it at 30. So we're trying to get consistent. My goal is to actually go and take a look at all of our roads and speed limits, and do some work in the statutes to make sure that roads are properly set up. But at this point, I think it doesn't make much sense to have a road with 3 different speed limits on it.
So part of Point Drive is in the town of Waukesha, part in the town of Genesee, and part in the town of McWanago.
Correct, and all 3 municipalities have their own speed limits. So it depends on what side of the street and which direction you're going in.
So if you're in you can drive on the town of Waukesha side of the road at 35 miles an hour, even if you're going the wrong direction?
Yeah.
Can we use that as a speed trap?
I see Captain Noonan is smiling. Would you buy that or not? Maybe not.
So this was just
Okay.
to get us to the same as Genesee at this point. So both sides of the street, when we're dealing with Genesee, are the same.
Somebody want to put a motion in place, please?
I'll make a motion to accept ordinance 2019-0-08 to amend 4017C to make the speed limit on Point Drive 25.
Is there a second to the motion?
I'll make a second.
Is there
I'm sorry.
a question?
Supervisor Stigler, he said I said 17C. I meant 27C. Thank you.
Okay. All right. I don't think I need to repeat that. Everybody understands what the motion is.
What brought this up?
Discussion.
Somebody just discover this, or?
I think someone from Genesee, a resident from Genesee, contacted them.
Any other questions? Okay, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Item 8I, discussion possible action on fireworks permit request for 5-star fireworks on 7/4/19, reviewed by Fire Chief 6/18/19, and site has been approved. And I believe Attorney Macy, you were reviewing some provisions of that. Do you have anything to share with us or not?
I believe, based on our letters, the administrator feels it's in proper order to act on it. Correct, Kathy?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes, so we reviewed it and they didn't get it right the first time, they got it right the second. Fair enough, Kathy?
Correct.
Okay, is there a motion on this item?
I'll make a motion, we approve the fireworks display for 5-star fireworks.
Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, Supervisor Radke, Supervisor German with the second to approve the fireworks permit request for 5-star fireworks on July 4th, 2019. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, passes unanimously. 8J, discussion and possible action on the removal of the maple tree planted in John Brunner's name, which is encroaching on the building and awnings, and plant a new maple tree in his name in a place decided by the administrator and Public Works Director. Kathy, you want to explain that?
So, we have the maple tree right outside the window, here, and as you can see, the tree has been, pruned, so then it moved away from the awnings. We are, putting up new awnings, this year, and, we're waiting for them to come. I'm asking that we remove the tree, but plant another tree in his name with his plaque and move it to a location that it would not need to be moved in the future. Our DPW can remove that tree without a problem. It's just that if we keep the tree there, we are going to be replacing the awnings more often as they don't get the proper light and they continue to mold.
Okay, just a bit of information to many of you, probably familiar name, but John Brunner, B-R-U-N-N-E-R, was a long-time town resident, town treasurer, and then for, I don't remember, was it some 8 years or something, he was a town chairman, passed away just a number of months ago, and I had a brief discussion with Kathy on this. I think it makes sense, appropriate thing to do. My only request of her is that we would contact his daughter and simply invite her over and show her what we're about to do and see if she's got any input. I think that would be an appropriate and kindly thing to do. Anybody want to put that into the form of a motion?
The tree was supposed to be a dwarf when we planted it.
I know it was. The only other thing is don't plant it in the right of way, right? Wink, wink. That was a bad joke. Okay, I will then proceed to make the motion to remove the maple tree planted in John Brunner's name, which is encroaching on the building and awnings, plant a new maple tree in its name in a place decided on by the administrator and Public Works Director in consultation with John Brunner's daughter. Also move.
Second that.
Okay, I made the motion, second by Supervisor Stigler. I don't think we need to repeat that. Everybody understand the motion? Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, pass unanimously. Thank you. Discussion, and I think it would be kindly if you would report back to us progress and status of that, please.
I can do that.
Let me get to that. Discussion, possible action, direct the administrator to notice advertising request for quotes for road maintenance, flex patch, slag and crack filling on Arlo Drive, Copper Smith Square, Charles Drive, Woodside Drive, Woodside Court, Wood Lily Country Lane, Honey Acres Court, and Crest Lane Court, with a bid form that has been reviewed by the town attorney. I think you have a number of documents in the packet about that. Kathy, I know you put some information together on funds availability and that type of thing. Would you walk us through that, please?
I did. In front of you, you have Jerry's rating, best to worst, on the evaluation of all of our roads that he felt road work needed to be done. He then went through and prioritized the roads that he'd like to see completed this year. We currently in our budget have $170,235 for contracted road services. We know we are going to be over on our health insurance due to another employee taking health insurance by about $20,000, and we purchased more salt at the end of the season last in March, which brought the salt over $59,000 to stay within budget. That leaves available for contract services about $91,000. We believe that the work that the roads that Jerry prioritized should fall within or less than that $91,000 price. The contracts and bid specs that were put out allows the board to make a decision to remove any roads, take it as a full package, or take each road separately. If the costs come out more than what's expected, the board still has the decision to not do any work or do one road or another. So.
Thank you. I just make one comment. Hard though it might be believe, we are actually kind of late in the season to take some of this to bid. That might have implications for the participation of bidders or for their pricing. I'm assuming, and you don't have to verify at this point in time, but anything is put out in the bid package would allow the town the prerogative to reject all bids if we get a single bid for one part of it or something, and we think that's excessive. I'm assuming that we've got that flexibility.
Yes, we do.
To do that, because hard though it is to believe some of these people might have their work schedules pretty much filled up for the year. A motion on this or any discussion before that? Does everybody understand what Kathy presented? Comfortable with somebody making a motion to proceed to take this to bid?
I'll make a motion to take this to bid.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, everybody understand the motion, what's at hand? Is there any discussion? If not, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That passes unanimously. Thank you. Last action item is discussion, possible action, future meetings, committee of the whole, tentative schedule. I'd set this up. We shuffled a couple things around and may do that from time to time. Would like to proceed because we got to get going on a 5-year capital plan discussion at the committee of the whole on the 11th of July. There's also another session that plugged in for the 25th salt shed and public works building for the 8th of August. This was upstream. We push it down a bit on conditional uses that we are still waiting on the county to act on the rescinding of the conditional uses. Is that correct?
That's correct. Be the end of July. It should go through county board.
All right. So some of that may move around, but that's unless anybody has great objection to that, and we can modify that as we go forward. That's the schedule. Okay, item 9, accounts payable, authorize paying of the bills. I don't have that copy right in front of me, or maybe I do in the packet. Do you have one of them, the amount? Yeah, I know I do. Okay, who would like to make a motion to authorize payment of the Ruckert and Milky bill?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make the motion to authorize the Ruckert and Milky bill for $4,262.27.
Is there a second to the motion? Don't all jump
I'll
at once.
second it.
All right. Motion by Supervisor Radke, second by Supervisor Stigler. Pay the Ruckert and Milky bill in the amount of $4,700 and what was the rest of it?
$4,262.27.
There you go. Okay, roll call vote, please.
Supervisor Durr.
Aye.
Chairman Fisher.
Abstain.
Supervisor German.
Aye.
Supervisor Radke.
Aye.
Supervisor Stigler.
Aye.
Okay, and then we got to pay the regular bills.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion, we pay the rest of the bills at $43,002.12.
Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, roll call vote, please.
Supervisor Durr.
Aye.
Chairman Fisher.
Aye.
Supervisor German.
Aye.
Supervisor Radke.
Aye.
Supervisor Stigler.
Aye.
Okay, thank you all for bearing with us for a great meeting. A motion for adjournment would be in order at this time.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
I'll second it.
Okay, motion second to adjourn. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, and we are adjourned at 8:51 PM. Thank you all.